She's also a member of the House Oversight Committee, one of the 3 House committees leading the impeachment inquiry, and she has been listening to Bill Taylor's deposition today. I want to talk to you about that in a moment, but I do want to get your reaction to the comment about the lynching. People who were lynched didn't have trials, they didn't have a right to respond, they didn't have the right to tweet out about this thing. I wonder today whether the president has a misunderstanding of lynching or this is a deliberate effort to rally his base.
Well, you know, I think that this is a trivialization of the lynching that occurred in this country for centuries. Individuals who, with no due process, as you said, for mere allegations or someone pointing a finger at them, hung from trees, were destroyed, families were destroyed, and whole generations were terrorized in this country with lynching. What is happening to the president is the democratic process. And whether he fears it or not, it is in fact completely different than lynching.
I want to just play what Lindsey Graham said today about this when asked.
A vote of inquiry allows the president to confront his accuser and to call witnesses on his behalf. Until that is done, this is a joke, this is a sham, and this is a political lynching.
You know, the term lynching is, there are probably a handful of terms in history that should only be applied to what they are, unless there's a very specific reference being made in which that becomes important. Holocaust, genocide, lynching, because they have very specific terms. And yet Lindsey Graham, who comes from a state where there were some very serious, in fact, the biggest mass lynching, I think, took place in South Carolina, is using it loosely.
Well, you know, Senator Graham should be ashamed of himself because of his own state's history in this regard, and so he should be very careful about using a word like this. But I want to speak about the fact that the Republicans are constantly talking about the process because they're afraid of the facts. And the fact is that these 3 committees, as you said, have been doing a tremendous methodical job of following the facts where they'll lead us. And when he says that the president has not been able to call his own witnesses, this is not a criminal trial. This is, in fact, an impeachment inquiry. The House makes the rules on this. We have not had special prosecutors as they were in Watergate and some of the others. We are doing the investigation ourselves. And as Chairman Schiff has said, we are trying to keep the integrity of this investigation, and there will be a point in time when there are public hearings and there will be access to the testimony.
Let me ask you about the Bill Taylor testimony. You, I believe, have been listening into this. Bill Taylor has called the policy of quid pro quo crazy. We've heard from Democrats saying he's drawing a direct line to the president on this. What can you tell us?
Well, I can't really tell you anything about the substance of the testimony. I will say, as you've heard, that Ambassador Taylor is a longstanding public official who has done his job. He has served this country both in the Foreign Service as well as in the military, and he gave a tremendous testimony today as to the facts as he recalls them.
One of your colleagues called this the most disturbing, freshman colleague says, in the time that he's been in the House, this is the most disturbing day he's had. Do you agree with that?
You know, I've had a lot of disturbing days since I've been here, particularly within the last time frame. You know, there are a lot of things that are going on here. You're talking about the impeachment, but of course, Democrats are continuing to legislate. We're having discussions about many issues, and there are a lot of things that are disturbing about this administration.
Stacey Plaskett, President, always a pleasure to talk to you. Stacey Plaskett is a Democratic House delegate representing the U.S. Virgin Islands. All right, coming up, it's down to the wire for Democrat Julian Castro, whose supporters now have less than 10 days to raise $800,000 for his campaign, or he says he'll drop out of the 2020 presidential race. Julian Castro joins me next. Plus, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he can't